Hey guys, Dodge Landisman here, and I wanted to give you a quick rundown of the debate. So, not the most consequential video, but as I mentioned, I have plans to visit New Hampshire as well as South Carolina to talk to the voters directly in that state and really camp out and get to know those respective states, not just fly in and out and spend 2 days there, but spend 3 weeks there, maybe even a month. So figured I'd start with some analysis. Before we do that, just want to thank everybody for their comments and their support on my last video covering the Danny Masterson trial. I should note, not bothered by the negative comments. There were only about 5 of them and about 300 positive ones in total, but wanted to bring them up. One, because as a journalist, I could have easily let my inaccuracy unnoticed and I could have easily just not talked about it. But I think as a journalist, even if it's the smallest mistake, you need to address it. You need to have the fortitude to bring it up first yourself, and you need to make sure that you take the actions to not do it again. Even though the information that I got incorrect, everybody knew what I meant, and it didn't throw off the crux of the truth and what I was trying to say. But as somebody who has been involved in journalism for a long time, even the smallest thing and owning up to the smallest thing makes a difference. Really, really sweet comments. I feel like I have a lot of parents in a way in these comments, and I'm kind of developing a relationship with everybody talking with me and giving me good advice. And they were very quick to make sure that I felt all right. I didn't feel that bad in the first place. I was just kind of having fun with some of the negative comments, especially the clothing comments and the unmade bed. Those comments I actually purely just got a kick out of. I didn't feel hurt in any single way. And I'll use some of these comments just to kind of have a dialogue with you guys and have some fun. But yes, let's talk about the debate, who I thought were the winners, who I thought were the losers. So we will start with the winners. I felt like altogether there were 4 winners. Biggest winner, Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy. I'd say they would be tied. Next up would be Doug Burgum, who seemed very folksy, very small-towny, brought up his credentials in that regard, and Nikki Haley, who seemed like the adult and the moderate in the room. And I should say, when I'm covering this debate, I'm not going to give out my personal political opinions. Eventually we'll get there, and I will lose half my audience, but most of this is going to be analysis about strategy and how effective it will be for the success of their role in the primary, and if the debate helped or hurt these candidates. So I gave my 4 winners. We'll start with Ramaswamy. All eyes were on Ramaswamy in a lot of ways. In 2 polls, he's actually competing with DeSantis for 2nd place, and I think this debate has cemented Ramaswamy's 2nd place finishing as of right now. DeSantis neither helped nor hurt himself. He was almost a non-entity in that room. He was unremarkable. He was a typical rehearsed politician, but nobody really went after him. So he was entirely forgettable. That's what I'd say about DeSantis. Ramaswamy handled all the incoming fire, even being called ChatGPT by Chris Christie, which I thought was a very funny quote. And he handled it well. He handled it, he smiled, he had a lot of energy. He went back and forth with Mike Pence, saying he didn't understand his slogan because Mike Pence accused Ramaswamy of, because he called the U.S. and said that the U.S. was living in dark times, he was therefore calling Americans dark, and Pence had this sunny morning in America Reagan narrative. So great back and forth, but Ramaswamy always very quick on his feet, and you could tell the guy is a boxer, the guy is a fighter. He's very slick. He kind of reminds me of a used car salesman, but I think he's polished, and I think people are impressed by his energy, and didn't stutter, was aggressive, so he came off great. Competing with Ramaswamy for 2nd place post-debate, in my opinion, is now no longer DeSantis, but it's actually New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. People were looking for guts. People were looking for somebody with Trump's attitude, but for the proportion of the Republican base that actually doesn't like Trump, which is a very small proportion, and unfortunately probably not enough to win. But Christie, in many of the New Hampshire polls, has been consistently in either 3rd or 2nd place and has been inching up. Expect after this performance in the debate for his place to be cemented and for him to be battling out with Ramaswamy for 2nd place. The reason he is doing so well is because he comes across so differently than all the other anti-Trump candidates. Yes, Asa Hutchinson, who did reasonably well and acquitted himself as a gentleman during the debate, is going hard against Trump, but he doesn't have that charisma, he doesn't have the fire in his belly, and doesn't come across as a bully. In a lot of senses, Christie comes across as this noble bully, this bully fighting some would think for democracy, and then of course others would say that he was a total sycophant to Trump and a total backstabber. So however you view it politically, Christie did himself well, especially in the moment where he was getting booed down. He was able to overpower the audience and kind of continue talking. So I think people saw his talent there, and he was just so different and so negative, but in a good way, where he'll stand out in people's minds. If they remember nothing, especially with the Georgia indictment coming up, if they remember nothing, they'll remember how aggressive Chris Christie was. So he did very well. Honorable mentions. Doug Burgum came across as very folksy, very smart, noted that he came from a town of 300 people, noted that the solutions, they were talking about violence and crime in big cities, and that the approach should be the small town approach, of which he's very familiar with. So Burgum, especially with this eagle, he literally looks like an eagle with this very American look, very poised. I think he'll do 1 or 2% better in the polls, but he did very well. Another one who differentiated herself really for the first time, especially battling it out with Ramaswamy, was Nikki Haley. She was very impressive. She probably will draw the ire of the anti-abortion activists because she confirmed that she would not support a national abortion ban, which is surprising because before she waffled on that issue. So she came off as the moderate, most electable adult in the room. And she played against type. She had a lot of back and forth with Vivek Ramaswamy. They were trading barbs for quite some time. And she came off as aggressive, but in a good way, because Haley is considered very genteel and very calculated and very conciliatory. So it's always an effective strategy when somebody plays against type. And the whole time, especially in that exchange with Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley was playing against type, which I think only wins her points. As in terms of the people who did poorly, Tim Scott could not differentiate himself in any single way, shape, or form. He was almost this non-entity on the stage, and Nikki Haley might benefit from that because a lot of DeSantis donors were considering jumping ship from DeSantis to Tim Scott because Scott had a really good announcement. Even Trump complimented his announcement speech in his usual backhanded way, but Scott had this great announcement and this very energetic speech where a lot of the donors felt, oh, Scott has the charisma and the likability factor that Ron DeSantis doesn't have. But unfortunately, Scott did not differentiate himself in any single way, shape, or form. So really didn't do much.